happy Halloween. Mary, I love that daily word that you just shared and the whole piece of protection, especially when we are dealing with the unknown. I think that was one of the words, the unknown, the challenges of the unexpected. Boy, isn't that life in a nutshell, unexpected? I got to tell you, I'm going to set this down. I know that's very tacky. I don't have a fancy bottle. I'm just going to put it here, and it's not even hidden because this is, well, it's sort of hidden, not really. And I'm sure that all of you went through this whole thing when COVID hit. Life was going along, right? And I had retired 7 years ago, and I started doing things that I always wanted to do. I was always a musician, and I was actually a music major, and my band was starting to play again in the Oregon District in Dayton, and I was singing in a choir, and I was even touring with Kim Char Meredith and with Lucy Blue Tremblay. I mean, all of these wonderful things were happening, and then all of a sudden, COVID came, and my calendar was completely empty. And I had that lost feeling. What's to come next? It was that fear of unknown. Like, I don't sit idly by. This isn't me. What do I do? I've lost my identity. And then the phone rings, and it was probably because I was in such a vulnerable state that the phone call went the way that it did. It was my old job calling back. And they were saying, hey, we have a new position we've just created. And it's civilian. You won't be a police officer, you'll be a civilian, but your job will be to deal with the new hires once they graduate from the academy and to work with them in their first year. And we thought you might be interested. And I can remember myself being on the phone saying, well, is it part-time? And they said, oh, no, it's a full-time job. And I said, well, I'll take it. Where did that come from? But it had to have been because of that vulnerability of the calendar being cleared, and all of a sudden here was this. And so I said yes, and then all of a sudden I am scared to death. What the heck do I know about this? It's a new job. Nobody knows anything about this. How on earth? But then again, it was a little bit exciting. Have you ever experienced that dichotomy of like, I'm excited and I'm scared at the same time, and what the heck do you do with that energy? Well, fortunately, as you know, there should be a song about everything. And I had already written one. This is actually one that I had already done in the past, but it was so appropriate. I'm sorry, Mary, I'm going to move your daily word here. I'm just going to set it right here. I'm just going to clutter the stage. By the time it's done, there will just be things all over, and it'll be an obstacle course to see if I can work my way around it. But in any case, this is a song that, as I recall, I originally wrote this one for this congregation because you were doing a talk about bravery. And I wanted a new song, so I created this, and it was debuted here years ago. And it's morphed a little bit, but this is it. Maybe you remember it. Roller coasters can make us queasy. Big adventures, well, they don't come easy. You got to feel the fear and do it anyway. Courage takes a little training. Don't take too much explaining. Do one thing that scares you every day. I'm gonna board a plane and skydive, then kiss the ground, glad to be alive. Sing karaoke of my favorite tune. Feelings, nothing more than feelings. Put my ego to the test. Post a selfie that's not my best. Do one thing that scares me every day. Roller coasters can make us queasy. Big adventures don't come easy. Feel the fear, do it anyway. takes a little training. Don't take much explaining. Do one thing that scares you every day. I'm gonna take a walk on the wild side, pour Tabasco on my fries, sing karaoke of another favorite tune, start spreading the news, see a movie on my own, learn how to really use my phone, do one thing that scares me every day. Roller coasters can make us queasy. Big adventures don't come easy. Feel the fear, do it anyway. Courage takes a little training. Don't take much explaining. Do one thing that scares you every day. I know this seems like just a silly song, but when I do these things, I wonder, why'd I wait so long? I'm gonna give pickleball a try, pull the plug and go offline, sing karaoke of another favorite tune, think of your fellow man, lend him a helping hand, send the food back when it's too cold, play my hand instead of fold, do one thing that scares me every day. Roller coasters can make us queasy. Big adventures don't come easy. Feel the fear, do it anyway. Courage takes a little training. Don't take much explaining. Do one thing that scares you. One thing that scares you. Do one thing that scares you every day. Thank you. Goodness. Yeah, so there I was, thinking, what the heck have I agreed to? What am I even getting involved in? I don't know. But I mentioned it to my family, and my father probably freaked out. I realized that my dad, he kind of worries, and I get it. I'm the youngest kid in the family, and he's a protector, and I totally understand that, but he was so worried that the city was going to hire me just to have somebody that they could fire when things go wrong, that was going to be my job. I would be like the sacrificial lamb. As soon as there was a problem with police community relations, well, we're going to fire Chelley. Done. It didn't make any sense to me. Why would they hire me just to fire me? That can't possibly be it. But I had to realize my father is, well, you know how there's like the glass half full and the glass half empty kind of people? And originally I would say, well, okay, Dad's kind of glass half empty. And then I'm realizing Dad is like not only glass half empty, it's like the cup has been like tipped over and it's been laying on its side for like a month, so whatever debris of water is like gone, and it's like fallen behind the refrigerator back there with the Tupperware lids. I mean, there's never ever going to be water in this glass. That's the kind of pessimism that I was looking at. And I realized that I'm the exact opposite because I'm so Pollyanna. I'm one of those that, you know what? I don't have a clue what I'm doing, but by golly, we're going to figure it out. I'm one of those that's like, let's have a show. We can do this. It can't be that hard. And so I took that idea and it was like, okay, let's start with what we know. What do I know? Well, I know police recruits. And in fact, these are my kids. These are the 16 bodies that were in the academy when I started. And you know, I have been teaching police recruits for over 20 years. I know these guys. Now their names change, the faces change, but you know, the haircuts and the attitude is pretty much the same. Throughout the decades, they all go through the same thing, and it's what I call the 4 phases of police recruit personality development. It goes something like this. So day 1 is always the first day of the academy, and they're sitting on the edge of their seats, wide-eyed, looking straight ahead. They don't speak, which is like my favorite day of the academy because, you know, you can't get a word in edgewise later. But they don't even realize there's a back to the chair. They're so nervous. And we'll go around the room and we'll make them talk and we'll say, why do you want to be a police officer? And every single one will say, I want to help people. And they mean it. It's amazing. Phase 2 is when they start to relax a little bit and they kind of sit back in their chair and they realize there's actually a back to it. And they start to talk a little bit and we start to see their personalities and which ones have humor and who's the better test taker and who is a lousy runner and all of those things. And they still say sir and ma'am and they're polite and they still want to help people. Then we get to phase 3, and this is when we teach them firearms, and there's this amazing thing that happens to them physically. So, granted, yes, we put a gun belt on them, and there's some weight to it, but it's interesting because all of a sudden, they walk weird, and they like become John Wayne, right? And like they can't get their elbows to their sides. It's like they just, they all of a sudden have this posture, and they kind of have some swagger. And, half the guys grow mustaches. I don't know what it is, but every year they all try to grow a mustache. Some of them really shouldn't. Eventually, thank goodness, they outgrow this phase. And then we get to phase 4. And phase 4 is graduation day. And there they are. They are proud, and they are polished. And what they will not tell you by the looks on their faces is that they are scared to death. Because they have been given a badge and a gun, and now we're telling them to go out and do what we trained them to do for the past 6 months. And every single one of them is thinking, oh my gosh, do I really have what it takes? I was just taking the class. I really have to go out and do something. Am I able? Can I do it? And what's interesting is not any of them know that every other classmate feels the exact same way until I tell them, you're not alone. If you're not afraid, I would be worried about you because your fear says that you care. And to this day, they still want to go out and help people. But then what happens is probably one of the greatest disservices is that we do give them a badge and a gun and we put them in this outfit where they will be hated because of what they're wearing. When they put on this uniform, they are representing every case of police brutality that has happened in the history of this country. They are George Floyd, they are Breonna Taylor, they are all of those cases, even Rodney King. They carry the stigma of all of those cases where some of them might not have even been born when some of these cases happened. They were not here in the 60s when there were riots, and yet those are the same outfits that they're wearing. So they go out on the street and they are idealistic. I am here to help people. And they are met with, where did that come from? I think about a puppy who just wants to play. Hi, I'm here, I'm wagging my tail. And somebody kicks it. What's a shock? No. You don't understand. I'm not the older dog. I am a puppy. I am here. I am different. I am here to help you. Kick. How many times can you kick a puppy before it starts to distrust, before it cowers, before it changes? This is the job that I have to handle in navigating an officer from retiring to surviving the first year on the street, because what I have seen is idealistic recruits wanting to help and immediately falling down this cascade into what I call cynical muck. Now, the really, really good ones, the healthy officers, are able to climb their way out on the other side to something that I call positive realist. Those who know that they can't change the world, but they know that they can do some good. Sometimes officers never make it out of this muck. They get trapped here. Those are the ones that you probably see on the news and read about in the paper because they could not make this successful climb out. So, okay, so here's my job. I'm going to find a way to bypass this. I'm going to find a way to get these officers from idealistic to positive realists and bypass all of this messy stuff. That's going to be my goal. This is what I'm going to do. I'm going to save the world from police brutality because I'm just going to make this happen. How hard could it be? So I surveyed all of my older officers, the ones who successfully made it to over here to this positive realist, and I gave them a survey and I said, listen, give me how you did it. How did you survive that first year? What did you do that you could keep that positive attitude? Even when faced with animosity and with hatred and anger, how did you do it? And so they gave me tips and ideas, and this is what they did. Through years of experience, this is what they've come to know. And I thought, well, all I need to do is share this with my new hires. Hey, guys, this is going to happen, so don't let it bother you. You know, people are going to call you names, and they're going to spit on you, and they're going to do these things, but you know what? Don't take it personally. It's just the uniform. It's not really you. Or you're going to see such horrid conditions that no human being should ever even have to live in, and yet you will see them on a daily basis. And you're going to meet people on their absolute worst days of their lives. But don't let that affect you. Just be professional and handle it and get through it. It'll be fine. Well, this might be a good time to tell you that I'm a planner. I think we've maybe talked about this, where I'm a list maker. Are there any list makers in this room? Okay. And what's the best part of when you accomplish things on your list? Yes, I'm seeing the universal check mark. Yes, I got to do it. It's done. How many of you are as bad as me that you have your list, and even if it wasn't on there, but you did it and you accomplished it, that you add it? I'm seeing the knowing nod. So that's how obsessive I am about list making, and it's yeah, and I'm trying to remember why I wanted to even tell you this story. My idea of the perfect gift, I may have shared this with you before too, is the pre-printed planner. Imagine this. It's the 1st of January, and you open up your Franklin planner. I still use a Franklin planner, not even the electric stuff. I like the written stuff. You can write it down and check it off. And it's already filled in with everything that's going to happen throughout the entire year, right? So it goes something like this, like, the phone rings and, oh, hi, Mary Jo. Yeah, you want to do lunch on Thursday? Lunch on Thursday. Let me check. No, you know what? My transmission of my car is going to go out that morning, and I'm actually going to spend the day with the mechanic. Yes. You know what? Right here it says I actually meet you at Starbucks on Saturday at 10. So I'll see you then. Okay, bye-bye. Wouldn't that be awesome? Wouldn't that be awesome? Unfortunately, it doesn't work that way. And it also doesn't work that way when I try to tell you ahead of time what's going to go on. We know this to be true. Don't take it personally. Just don't bother being upset by that. As I hear myself say those words, I feel like the doctor, that when you say, doctor, it hurts when I go like this, and the doctor says, don't go like this. Well, that'll be $75 of a copay, thank you. Does that work? No. But I didn't realize it at the time, and the flaw in my plan became extremely obvious to me when I brought my kids back 4 months after they had been on the street, back to the same classroom and put them in the same seats. And I looked out at them, and they were tired, and they looked beaten down, and they looked much older than the 4 months that had passed since I had last had them in that classroom. And I realized that my words were falling on deaf ears because I was trying to preach compassion and resilience and professionalism, and they were sharing stories of angry people who were yelling at them for problems that have existed that they couldn't solve, and they were problems that had been there for years, long before they had ever even taken the oath. And there was this frustration and helplessness. I was witnessing them falling from this idealistic recruit into the cynicism muck, and there was nothing I could do to stop it. I had to sit with this. I was not expecting this. I thought for sure there would be something that we could do to change it, to curb it, to mitigate it somehow. And so I did the only thing that a trained professional would do. I called my mother. Because my mom was a kindergarten teacher for over 30 years. And I have found that anything that you need to know about humans, you can usually figure it out in early childhood development. Do I have any young teachers? Okay, I was going to say, I think I've got some teachers in the room here. And so you can see how the brain learns by looking at self-portraits. It's fascinating. In fact, at my first example here, perhaps you've seen this. Is anyone familiar with this drawing? Have you ever seen it when you're with your kids? Usually about 2 to 3 years old. This is a self-portrait. And you'll notice that the body and the head are all the same. It's all kind of one blah. And 2 arms, 2 legs. Now, typically they're familiar with eyes, nose, and mouth because chances are you've been with an adult that's saying, this is your eye, this is your nose, this is your mouth, so you know the parts of the face. But if you think about it, when you're young and you look down at yourself, really all you see is just your legs and your arms. I mean, this is what you know, so you draw what you know. Now, a few months later, you'll actually get a little bit longer in the body, and you'll see that you've gained a torso. So there's some connection between the head and the legs. There's got to be something else. So now we've decided, okay, I figured out there's a body. But notice the arms come out here. My mother shares a story of when she was trying to draw her dad at this age, my grandfather. And he looked at the drawing and he stood in front of her like this and said, do my arms come out here? And she had no clue what he was trying to say, because in her mind, this is a human body, this is what it looks like, this is what I know, this is what's true to me. When you get to be about 5, this would be my mother's, her specialty here, you'll notice that people start to put themselves into their world. They become aware of things that are even larger than them. So, and there's also something called a baseline, where they actually are on the ground, not floating in the air, which is actually a sign of maturity that you're usually ready for kindergarten if you can draw a picture like this. You'll also have other items. Here's a tree, the sun and the sky, birds, because they're fun to draw, I guess. But one other thing that I find interesting is you'll notice the child in the middle there has shoelaces. And basically what happens is this: if you know how to tie your shoes, you will draw shoelaces on your shoes. If you don't know how to tie shoes yet, chances are that's not something you'll put in the drawing. So again, what you know, you will put in the drawing. If you don't know it yet, then it doesn't exist. You have to have that life experience to pick it up. Now, I realize that many of us, myself included, probably don't advance much further than this in our artistic abilities. If you do, you might move on to like a art class where you would actually look at the structure of the human face. And as we get older and we can start to pick up these things. For example, did you realize that the eyes are not at the very top of the head? They're about 1/3 of the way down in the head, in the face. The distance between the 2 eyes is actually the exact same distance as the width of the eye itself. So you could typically put a 3rd eye between the 2 eyes that are there. Fascinating, isn't it? When you look at the edge of the nose, the outer edges is actually lined up with the inner part of the iris of the eye, and the corners of the mouth typically are below the pupils. The eyebrows are typically where the tops of your ears fall. So when you start looking at the proportions and what we know from life experience, we're able to actually learn more and know more. But then imagine I have a great niece who's about 2, and if she were to draw this, maybe she's drawing a picture of me saying, here, Aunt Chelley, this is you. And I would say, oh, honey, Carter, no, you got to start over again. You know, my arms don't come out of my ears. Although I'm thinking sometimes when I'm stressed, they do. And I'm wondering if maybe, just maybe, 2-year-olds are trying to tell us something about the human species. We need to relax more. But in any case, this would be the difference between a 2-year-old and perhaps that art major in college. But it all took experience for us to be able to get from point A to point B. And I realized in looking at this that, the process of developing as a police officer is going to be the exact same thing. And I realized it's kind of like a 5-step process. You can tell I'm a numbers person. I always have there's 3 of these, there's 5 of these. Well, I have 5 of these. And the first one, this is, when you get out on the street, the very first thing is going to be awareness. And the awareness is something's different. I used to be the class clown in my high school, or I was the quarterback of the football team, or I was the drum major of the marching band, and all of a sudden I'm not these things anymore. I'm aware of something being different. And after you're aware of that difference, then we go into analysis. I don't really like having to play this role of being the authoritarian or being the enforcer. That's not my personality. I don't really like this. And then the next step is to kind of assess it. Okay, you don't like it. What emotion would you assign to it? Is it anger? Is it fear? Is it guilt? Is it shame? What are you actually feeling with this discomfort that you're experiencing? And it could be, I'm mad that people are yelling at me. Or I'm ashamed that I'm not able to handle that better. Or I'm afraid that I'm turning into somebody that I don't like. Or I feel hopeless because I can't do anything that I thought I'd be able to do. All of these emotions are real, and the 4th very important step is allow. Allow yourself to acknowledge and to feel those emotions. I think one problem that cops have, and this is probably human nature for all of us, is we're very quick to try to help others, but we don't think about getting help for ourselves. Anybody else feel that in here? If you're a caregiver and a helper, which we know these kids go into this profession to help others, helping self is not part of it. If I'm the problem solver, I'm not allowed to have problems. And so we stuff it. We contain it, we hide it. We don't let anybody know. And you know what happens then? We lose connection. Because we're hiding what's happening within, and the human body craves connection. So we need to sit and we need to process with what those emotions are. And finally, we go to that 5th step, which is the application of the ahas. What are you learning from this? What is this telling you? Well, for me, I realized that I didn't like having to be a bully. I didn't like having to go in and say, "Sit down." I wanted to be the officer that could make people smile. I wanted to be the officer that could get you to say thank you. And in fact, for my 16 kids, that's a challenge I give them every day. I want you to generate 5 thank yous a day. 5. And it's not hard. It could be you're going into the convenience store and you hold the door open for somebody. Thank you. There's one. It could be, I'm going to take someone to jail, but they're smoking a cigarette, so I let them finish the cigarette before I put them in handcuffs. Thank you, officer. It could be the words of wisdom in the cruiser as you're driving to the jail and saying, you know what? I know it seems bad right now, but get this warrant paid for, and then you don't have to worry about it anymore. Here's some programs you can go for some social help. Here's how you can break the drug habit. Here's some places that you can go. Thank you. And what are the ahas that you're learning about other people? Cops are learning that, you know what? Everybody wants to be seen. Everybody wants to be heard, just like us. We're all human. We're no different. So use those ahas that you're learning, and that's what I've been trying to teach. But I realized that these were my life lessons. They haven't experienced it yet. They have to go out and figure it out for themselves. There is a great quote, Soren Kierkegaard, I think I'm saying that name right. I love this. It says, life can only be understood backwards, but it must be lived forwards. Think about that for a minute. Life can only be understood backwards, but it must be lived forwards. It only makes sense that life starts to fall into place the older we get, because we can look back and see why things happened the way they did. Have you had that conversation with a child? Man, I'm 18 and I don't even know what I'm going to be when I grow up. Life is over. And you're looking at them at 60. Like, really? This is a problem? You're just getting out of high school. You've got so many opportunities before you. But can you convince that 18-year-old that there's more to living than just, I didn't get a date for senior prom? No, because that's all they know. But we know that hindsight's 20/20, and so this is so true. But I can't cheat you on your journey and give you the answers to the test. You'll never remember them. You'll never know them. You have to live them yourself. There's another quote that I wanted to share. It's a more recent philosopher, actually plural. It's the Indigo Girls. Maybe you've heard of them. They love their music, and there is one particular song that I believe pertains to this. It's called the Wood Song. And the song is basically describing being in this small wooden boat that's fragile, and you don't have your Franklin pre-printed planner, so you don't know where you're going. There's no map, and you are at the mercy of whatever the oceans do. And you have just got to trust that you're going to get wherever it is that you're supposed to go. And the chorus of this song, it says, the wood is tired, and the wood is old, but we'll make it fine if the weather holds. But if the weather holds, we'll have missed the point. That is where I need to go. I realized that this lesson for the recruits is really a lesson for me, a lesson for all of us. What is it that we don't yet see because we haven't experienced it yet? What is it that's going to become clear to us in the future, and we're just not quite ready to see it yet? I am in the middle of writing a book. It is called The Fence, the Fog, and Other Aunt Chelleyisms. And there's a chapter, I'm sure it's going to, well, I will tell you that I'm handwriting it, so there will only be one copy ever, unless I actually type it at some point. But there's a chapter in it called The Gift of the Fog. And the gift of the fog is basically telling us that in a foggy situation, and I'm talking about dense fog, we can only see what is right in front of us. And it causes us to do two things. Number one, it causes us to slow down, because if you go too fast, you're going to hit a tree. So number one, you slow down. Number two, it heightens our awareness to the present. So if I can't see, typically I'm going to listen. What am I hearing? Is that water rushing? I can't see, so I got to listen more and go slowly. In a dense fog, imagine if you were walking in a wooden path and you can only see your hand and no further. But if you take one step, then you can see the next arm's length. And then one more step, and you can see one arm's length. But everything that you need is what is within reach right here. It keeps you focused in the present. And the reason that I say it's a gift, because it sounds like it's a hindrance the way that I'm describing it, but let's just say that we go back to that analogy where I have Mary Jo on the phone, and she's saying, we're going to end up at Starbucks at 10 o'clock on Saturday. And so I go, and what actually happens is when I order my Kappa, Frappa, Chappa, Latte, Dolce, something, something, I'm not a Starbucks person, so I don't know the fancy names, but I order this, and then I accidentally spill it on a very expensive jacket that's dry clean only. Now, if I had known this ahead of time, I could have A, ordered the water, or B, maybe worn an old sweatshirt that I could have thrown in the wash and it wouldn't have been that big of a deal. However, let's say that the following week, when I'm at the dry cleaner taking my jacket because I had this spilled frappa crappa whatever, I run into an old friend of mine that I haven't seen in years, and she is the CEO of a company that I have been trying to interview with, and she's able to get me in to get this fabulous job, and then something happens because of it. It's very similar to what you were talking about, Joe, with the car that gets in front of you when you're driving, and you're thinking, why is this happening? But then later you find out, oh, because I was 5 minutes late, I was able to fill in the blank, rescue the kitten from the tree, or what have you. We don't know. The fog is the gift, because chances are, if you knew what was lying ahead, you wouldn't go. And then you'd miss the point. Then you would miss that opportunity of growth. My message to you today is this: don't miss out on the life lessons, the happy accidents, the growing pains. They make us who we are. And that is where we need to go. Which brings us to our affirmation. If you can pop that up there for me. I trust Spirit to guide me where I need to go. Can we say that together? I trust Spirit to guide me where I need to go.